Where do all these ships in the business context come from? This is kind of the topic of today because, yes, we're touching on one ship, so to say, in a business context, which is called intrapreneurship. So my name is Maike Benner. I'm the host of this LinkedIn Live, and I'm one of the few people in Germany who is privileged enough to have a LinkedIn Live access. And this is why I try to be online as often as I can, once a month, once a week, always on a Tuesday afternoon at 6:30 German PM. So this is in English because I have a massive English community and I also want them to be included. The second reason, Lily and I also wrote an article about this topic, and so it's much nicer if also those people can now, to this article, have also some more input. When I'm not live weekly or posting daily, I run a business with my business partner, Lily, and we help companies, yes, for example, with the struggle of ships, meaning entrepreneurship. So in companies, entrepreneurship, if you want to found your own company, sidepreneurship, if you want to start your side business, and also if you don't know what's going on and you want several other streams of income, then we're the right person to talk to you. So, intrapreneurship. In my post today, I already mentioned that intra is like internal. So you're having an internal view. In a business, of course, we're talking about an internal company view. I brought along an international definition from the Cambridge Dictionary, which reads, an intrapreneurship is the willingness or ability of people within a large company to take direct responsibility for turning ideas into profitable new products, services, or businesses. So let's hang there for a minute. And if that statement or anything other connected to intrapreneurship resonates with you, I'd love for you to use the chat and share your opinion, also your view, maybe also your experience, so I can bring the comment up and we can have a lively discussion about it. So looking at the definition, okay, here, like the first thing that I stumbled across is that it says large companies. So does this mean it doesn't apply for small companies? Not necessarily. Like my reasoning, my understanding, also of course having worked in bigger companies and consulted them, is that the bigger companies get, the more difficult it is to navigate, to steer them. This is also, you might have heard about companies being a big tanker or cruise ship. That is not really, agile and flexible in the water. You actually need a while when you hit the brakes or you want to turn the steering wheel to one or the other side, you actually take a while. And this picture, if you take it onto companies, this is also why typically you'd be saying that the larger the company, the more inflexible. But no, that's not in general, I would say. But if this is so, and this is actually where intrapreneurship comes really into the game, is if you're saying, okay, for what reason or another, your company has become a bit, slow maybe, a bit large, decision making takes a while, which is also good because if you run companies with several thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees, naturally you need to have some structure. So this is really not about bashing the big. But what many big companies realize, of course, is that there are certain times and certain areas where the competition is more flexible, is quicker, startups seeing entering the place. Just look at the food and beverage industry. This is an industry that Lily and I are consulting also. How many new products have you seen on the shelf? So there's a really, let's say, origin conscious juice. Then you have potato chips, which are not potato, but some other different ingredient. And then there's so many startups even also in Germany, which is typically not the startup country as general, but there are so many new ideas in the food and beverage industry. So what do the old players do? Yes, of course, they also want to take that market share back in a sense. And one way to do that is to install teams in your company who help you to do that. So this is what is really meant by the entrepreneurial spirit. And an entrepreneur should do the same thing as an entrepreneur, meaning being flexible, having ideas, putting them to market, not being afraid of failure or of burning money, but at the same time having a sense of responsibility for the company. All that things that of course come natural if it's your own company, if you're an entrepreneur. But you can foster that in companies. It goes without saying that it has super many advantages for companies having that knowledge internal, not to buy it in, source it in, asking a consultant to do that. But no, it's easier said than done. The question is really, how do you or can you establish entrepreneurship in a company? Of course, let's say you're in a leading position, you can come in Monday morning and say, now we're going to become much more flexible, either the whole company as such, or I'm going to designate a team, so to say, which, I don't know, just, but listening to it, people will probably say, okay, what does he or she now have up her sleeve again? No. Of course, entrepreneurship cannot just be dictated. There should be a system to it, meaning not everyone is an entrepreneur. Why should everyone be an entrepreneur? There are certainly certain traits within people that help them fulfill the job better or more easier, so to say. And you should really consider that. It's the most viable thing to do, to consider that and to place the right people in the right position, so to say. So what to look for? Oh, take me. Like if I had known this concept of entrepreneurship, or if my former employer had actually set out to build a team, looking back now, this would have been a perfect place for me to work in. I was always a bit different in the company. I always had new ideas. I always wanted to go a little bit off the road to where my boss was actually seeing me. I made sure that I developed into certain project that I was willing to do, to avoid talking about certain product categories that I wasn't wanna get into. And I was flexible, I was courageous, I was willing to travel, willing to spend long hours. And so this is the kind of skill set you should be looking in a company. If you say, oh, well, that is also me, and I'm employed somewhere, maybe that's also a good cue to say, okay, where could I develop into, so to say. First comment coming in, and I of course want to share it with you. Is entrepreneurship only for departments, or can it be implemented in the whole company? Well, the bigger the company, the more difficult it will certainly be to open the doors Monday morning and say, now we're all on intrapreneurship. And as I just described, there's certain characteristics, certain traits within people that help them in jobs like that. Because to be honest, only because, I'm thrilled at the idea of doing something new. I quit my job and founded Manage with Lily because I wanted that. And I didn't know that I could maybe have it part-time or as part of an organization. I thought the only way there was to become an entrepreneur. But not everyone is like this. And I just have a look around left and right, my former colleagues or family members. Not everyone is like that. So this is why I would say, well, start with a team or a department, one that really has an impact. Food and beverage industry again. The R&D would be a perfect field to be super innovative, to be courageous, One that would also profit if they say, well, there's no budget, or you can really, develop something out of what seemed to be out of the blue. That would be super helpful. Marketing could be maybe in one area where we say, okay, no, we need to do something totally different. We need to have a totally new approach to marketing. Why not hiring? Why not come up with this total new hiring approach in an economy that is really scarce with skilled people? So there could be different ways. But why not start small in one department where you think it has the most effect, and then say where it takes you? Next question from Lily. How can companies find the employees who have the entrepreneurial spirit? Well, first idea is probably, to go out and hire these new skills. Yet again, and this is the true beauty of entrepreneurship, because intra to me also means look inside. So who's got that skill within your company? So now, assuming you're in charge of the entrepreneur process within your company, but to be honest, you're not an entrepreneur yourself. So how would you know what to look for? Advice from my side would be, of course, to look around, maybe to get in contact with entrepreneurs, and maybe they'd be able and willing to give you advice. You could go to a networking event. Of course, you could and should read a lot. Yet, and this is with everything that is out there, it is really generalistic. And the beauty, but actually the challenge is to find out how does it apply to you and to your company. This is why entrepreneurship, doing it yourself, does not really mean doing it alone. So, and still a consultant can be super helpful at that point to really look into your company and also find out who are those people. So, for example, Lily and myself, we pride ourselves with our entrepreneurial spirit and with the roller coaster ride we have been going through for the past 3 years. So, of course, we are not only an ideal sparring partner in theory, we can also help in practice look for people with that skills. And as there is so much more to it and such a deeper level of also understanding and assessment, that as of this year, we've teamed up with a company who has experience for over the past 30 years of doing developmental and training tests with employees. Because there are certain traits, as I mentioned, that you could look for and that you could look systematic within people. And then, of course, decide, okay, who's got that skill or who might want to develop that skill. Because that's not because we're not all entrepreneurs. Does not mean that this is not a skill we can develop. This is really super not rocket science. And I've really come to agree that entrepreneurship is not so much about being born with a certain skill set to have it in your veins, so to say, but to actually develop it. And it's got so much to do more with your brain, but not necessarily in IQ, but also EQ. And the people from all walks of life can learn that. And this is the true beauty, and this is also what companies should look for. And only because someone hasn't, done it in the past doesn't mean that he or she would not be ideally suited for that. So, but how to create it? I want to leave you with a few bullet points to think about what can be done to create that culture with or without a consultant to start with. So, tip number 1 is identify your entrepreneurs within that company. As I said, people that seem to be, all over the place too much. This could be the one. If you get help from external consultants, they'll also have a third eye or bird eye view, and also can say, okay, what are the traits, where are the people that you should look for? Number 2, create equal opportunities. So every individual should have the chance. So we would not advise to say, or to keep it as a secret project, and then all of a sudden you have this team of superstars like in the Marvel comics saying these are our 5 entrepreneurs and they're gonna, save the whole ship, so to say. But really keep it open and also tell people what you're doing and what you're looking for, and maybe everyone can voice his or her opinion and even be part of it. Or still not part of it, maybe they still have valid ideas. Empower the people to say, okay, you can do it, be courageous, walk them through, and maybe really have a idea or a structure of what does it mean. So intrapreneurship is total risk, also financial risk. How can you, that within the company, mitigate it, that the people saying, oh yeah, I want this, I take the risk, or let's say on a business side, but not on the financial side. Of course, encourage collaboration within the company and don't keep it as an elite kind of thing that is going on. Be transparent about the process, about who you selected, why you selected. Also be transparent when you bring consultants in. Like, there's nothing I hate more when I come into a company and I think, okay, I'm presented like an enemy. And not because the leaders didn't introduce or talk badly about us, but because it was not really clear to people why consultants had to come into the business in the first place. And giving many examples of consultancy cases that didn't go too well or that were hugely in the public eye, it is super important to be transparent and be open. Another really vital tip, and this is actually something that I want to leave you with, is give enough time and space. So you cannot, in a company context that's been working for many, many years, maybe even in the same team, now you break the team up, ask everyone to work totally differently, and then say, okay, well, in half a year, I'm sure our new drink is on the shelves. It doesn't work that way. Might be simple and clear now that I talk to you, but really reflect and analyze and forecast properly how much time is needed and how much space do you need to give to the people. If someone should be totally entrepreneurial, again to my food and beverage example of today, if you tell someone, find me this new superfood, for example, someone might have to actually go to the Brazilian Amazon or elsewhere in the world. Of course, that person needs time and space. It goes without saying, but still, I want to leave you with that. So, but that's not it. I wanted this to be really short, but we're also close to 20 minutes and should really be a short impulse, because entrepreneurship you cannot learn in a day. But what I want to leave you with is, again, independently of whether you're at that process and you're the decision maker in the company, or whether you just find the concept really, really interesting. Check out a lot of reading materials. Follow Lily and myself, who are a lot into the topic, and of course feel free to check out an article that we've written for the International Business Magazine called Business Fit Magazine. This is the URL. I'm also going to post it in the comments for you to see, where we gave a bit more deeper dive into the topic or touched on different aspects that will help you broaden your horizon and hopefully make a decision based on it. If there's anything Lily and I can help you with, feel free to get in contact via all social media handles or write me directly, maike@malish.de. And with that, I wish you a perfect evening and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Well, here physically, but digitally it's going to be on Lily's profile, because her guest tomorrow is going to be Carsten Rocke. And he's a sales guru based in Berlin, Germany. You might have heard of him, you might have written his many best-selling books, or been on his many, many stages. So make sure you check this one out. Also 6:30 p.m. in German on Lily's profile.